Okay, hey, welcome back everyone to another episode of Ecosystem Aces. I'm Chip Rodgers, Chief Partner Officer at WorkSpan, and excited to be joined today by Arjit Chatterjee. Arjit, welcome.
Thanks, Chip. Thanks for having me here. Really excited about this and really looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, likewise. We have some interesting topics to cover. Arjit, first of all, thank you for it's 8 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. You're based in India, so it's 9:30 on a Friday night, and I really appreciate you joining late in the evening your time. Arijit is a senior partner manager for national SIs at AWS, and you have an interesting career. You're actually your background is electrical engineering, and here
Yes.
you are, in a business role. But I'm a fellow engineer from my background, so I'm with you, Arjit. But yeah, a number of years at Wipro, and then now with AWS for about 4.5 years. And what's really going to be interesting, I think, is getting into this because you've worked with a lot of ISVs in your early career at AWS, and now you're focused on SIs, and with your background with Wipro, looking forward to getting into you know some of those nuances of working with ISVs, working with SIs, putting everybody together. And so I think with that, why don't we start? Maybe Arjit, you could just share a little bit about your current role and what you and your team are up to.
So, Chip, I think my journey in AWS has been pretty exciting. Like every day is a venue to learn something new. In my current role, again, I've taken up this role recently. So I changed roles within AWS, and right now I'm looking at a strategic set of national system integrators and part of the partner org APO within AWS. So essentially, if I look at it fundamentally in terms of the partnership motion, we talk about co-build, co-market, co-sell. Definitely, that still remains the same. We are all one team, and APN is the framework we all operate in. But with the SIs, the nuances are different where, co-selling, what it may be for an ISP is different how it is for an SI. The kind of programs we have to support our SIs are a bit, different. There are a lot of flavors to it. So, yeah, lots of learning, lots of excitement, and I'm really enjoying my time here at AWS.
Yeah, a lot. Gosh, AWS has been growing so fast and doing so well. It's just coming off of reInvent, a lot of energy going into this year. So let's start with talk a little bit about the transition, and let's go into what are some of the differences that you see from your role working with ISVs and now moving into the SI realm.
Talking about the differences, right? So as you would understand, right? So for an ISV, the co-sell motion, it's essentially like most of the ISVs we have, the software partners are SaaS partners. So the way in which a co-sell happens within AWS for ISVs is a bit different because the operating model or the engagement model of partners with the AWS larger team around the account managers, the PSMs. Is essentially uh, you know rotating around some of the incentive and the benefit programs we have specific to ISVs. Like
Hmm.
I think recently we made some announcements that we went around um, SaaS coastal benefit and thus called ISV Accelerate program. So that's where the motion was a lot revolving around that side of things, and obviously the discussion around marketplace. I've seen marketplace grow in India many folds in the past 2 3 years. So there was a very increased push towards marketplace, and I think even the recent reinvent announcements again, kind of uh, restore that fact that marketplace is going to be the default going forward. I mean, that's how
Hmm.
when AWS as an organization is moving. So that's from the ISV side of things. Now coming to the SIs, right? So obviously here also I see there is an increased traction for marketplace. Co-selling is always important, but because the nature of the business, right, with SIs, we talk more about the migrations, the modernizations, and there is an increased focus on the competencies, which the partners need to develop, the capabilities which the partner need to show, and that's ways the engagement model also with the AWS teams is a bit different, because in ISVs, because the deployment model is SaaS in most of the cases, whereas with an SI, say, who is migrating a workload from a customer to AWS, then that is something where AWS reps and account managers are directly getting benefited. So yeah, it's a delicate balance, and that's where I see there is a lot of motion. The motion is a kind of different. Another area where I see a lot of differences around the funding programs we have, right? So
Mm.
as you would have seen, as you would have known, right, AWS helps partners in a lot of through a lot of funding mechanisms to accelerate their co-build, co-market, co-sell journey. So while some of the benefits around co-marketing are pretty similar, but like for example, in the SI side of world, map is a big thing, right? Where we incentivize partners to migrate, the workloads to AWS. So that's one increased difference I see, and that's where sometimes there are a lot of added complexities and nuances to that, which I'm still getting hold of. But I think definitely that's a deviation from the ISP side of things. So as I said, I mean, if you look at it, it all boils down to being part of the same ecosystem, but
Hmm.
like each partner is serving their own purpose. And at some point in time, I'm also seeing there is an increased push for power of three, where we are looking at avenues to collaborate, the ISVs with the SIs, um, and we have features within marketplace like CPPOs, right, which essentially talk about, or rather, enable that for our SIs as well as ISPs. So that's the larger game, and it's happening in bits and pieces. But I think yeah, a lot more work needs to be done there, and in like the larger scheme of things.
Wow. So each one of those topics is a topic unto
Right,
itself, and
right.
I think we can. Well, I love to dive into some of those. So, I think why don't we start with marketplace, just because there's such a big emphasis on marketplace. It is really interesting, this dynamic of marketplace has always been a big sort of focus for ISVs. Hey, I've got a product, I want to put it up on the marketplace. It's transactable, maybe I have private offers and that sort of thing. But now more and more, and you're seeing it with SIs really also wanting to take advantage of marketplace and putting their solutions and capabilities up on marketplace. How are you seeing that manifest with your partners?
Yeah, definitely, I think it's increasing day by day. But as I said, there is a lot more to do there. I think one of the reasons also being, there are some added complexities. So because most of my partners are like headquartered in India, there are some added complexities around transacting through marketplace. So maybe once that those complexities are sorted out, we might see a larger push or larger volume happening through marketplace. But even with the current complexities in place, I see a lot more. Obviously, the ISVs are doing a lot of private offers, MPPOs as we call them. But even on the
Hmm.
SI side, there are a sizable bunch of SIs who are looking at routing market CPPOs, the channel partner private offers, wherein they are engaging with the ISVs, acting as their resellers, and in that
Hmm.
process, both the ISVs and the SIs tend to gain out of it. So I would say it's an increasing trend, but I think there is a lot more to do there. And I think as we grow further, I think this is going to be a big motion.
Yeah, I think you brought up another interesting topic, which is CPPO, where the which is just define it, channel partner, private offer, consulting partner, private offer. I see it referred to in both ways, but it's basically an ISV giving, sort of delegating responsibility for their channel partners or consulting partners to be able to initiate some of those private offers. And so, how is that impact? Are you seeing the SI partners embracing
Yeah,
CPPO?
yeah, I think it's both ways around. I think even ISVs are looking forward to that. I'll tell you, I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you a scenario where this really works, right? So a lot of our SIs, so like each SI has, an expertise in a specific domain, specific area. Like, so if we look at the alignment of the AWS teams, the sales teams, in line with the recent, changes we have had in the org. So right now, if you look at the account teams, they're categorized as deep, focus, and scale, right? That's where we have seen most of the AWS motions revolving around these three, and there is a digital motion as well. But then for each of these scales, there are partners who have a very wide reach and influence in that area. There are industry partners, specialist partners who specialize in, like, say, data and AI, or say
Mm-hmm.
migration, modernization, so like that. So now what really happens is, now ISVs, because of the need, some of these ISVs are maybe starting up or new in the journey, and they're looking for a wider reach. So they might be having a very good solution which is sellable in the market, but they struggle with the reach, especially say in regions where they are not present, right? So that's where this kind of mechanism of CPPO comes in really handy. So for example, say an Indian partner looking to sell in LATAM, right? So if they want to go themselves, they might not have the right, people on ground. They might not
Mm-hmm.
have,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to navigate. So each and every, region has their nuances,
Mm-hmm.
complexity. So that's when a lot of these SIs hold the fort. They know the geography pretty well. They have a wide customer base. So the ISVs are trying to negotiate with these kind of SIs, which they depending on the interest area, and see if these ISVs can leverage the reach of these SIs to reach to a wider market. That's one use case I'm giving. There are a lot of other examples around it, but yeah, definitely that's where I see a lot of push happening. A lot of these ISVs asking about it. A lot of this, even even the consulting partners, inquiring about this, because if you look at it, at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everyone. And for consulting partners also, there is a it helps them enhance their capability, the portfolio, and maybe it helps them take a larger value proposition to their end customers. So as I said, everyone sees value in it, depending on which stage of the journey they are in, and how they're looking to expand. But especially in India, I've seen ISVs to be like, uh, pretty aggressive in their growth strategy, especially outside India. So some of these partners are definitely leveraging CPPO to the fullest to gain maximum market share and enter into new markets. So that's one thing I've seen.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting, because I mean, you're right that ISVs don't may not have the capacity, or the people on the ground in different regions, or specialized capabilities within an industry. So they're leveraging the SI partners to bring those to bear. How talk a little bit about the sort of configuration of multiple partners coming together. And so you have a really interesting perspective, having both deep experience with ISVs and also with the SIs. What are the kind of configurations? I think some of the industry analysts, Jay McBain says, a typical solution has 7 partners all coming together. I mean, of course, you got AWS, you got
Yeah.
you got an ISV. There may be multiple ISVs. You have an SI. What does that look like in your sort of day to day as you're working with your SI partners?
So I think, yeah, I mean, honestly, there is no single way to answer this because there are a lot of variables, lot of moving pieces around it, and at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I think AWS and Amazon being a customer obsessed company, I think it all arises from what the customer wants, right, or what the end customer is looking for. So, in a scenario, let's say simulate a scenario where say a customer is looking for say a banking solution with some managed services, and also maybe potentially they're looking somebody to manage their AWS billing, like somebody acting like a reseller. So
Hmm.
if you look at it just for these three use cases, right, we have a long list of partners who can address that need, and then it's a complex equation of which partner fits the bill where, and what is their kind of equation with say the customer, right? Whether they have any reference with the customer, whether the customer is looking at it, right? So definitely, that's something which plays on a case-to-case basis. But I've seen in like cases where there are say 4 to 5 partners working in a deal. That's what I have seen. But I've heard of cases where, like you said, 7 partners, 8 partners, like working on a single deal, depending
Yeah.
on where in the value chain they are adding value to the end customer. So that's how I put it. And I think it's also a function of, like if we talk about the ISV, the use case fit, right? How much are they fitting the customer requirement? And when it comes to the SIs, the area they specialize in, if it is there are managed service partners, there are reseller partners, there are partners who specialize in data and AI, there are partners who are looking at, migration and all those stuff, right? So it's a pretty complex mix. And I think, yeah, I would say it's it's a complex world out there, but to summarize, it all depends on how the customer wants to play it around. And obviously, being AWS, we are supportive of the customer's requirements and decision.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a good perspective. It's always goes back to what the customer needs are and what they're looking for sure.
Right.
Um, Arjit, you mentioned at the beginning, you talked about, I think this is another topic that would be interesting to dive into a little bit, incentives and some of the incentives that are set up for, and again, love to hear your perspective on the differences between ISV incentives and incentives set up for SIs and just sort of how that comes about for AWS and AWS partners.
See, I think to address this, I think it's fairly simple, right? So, talking about the ISVs, right, or the software partners. So there are two aspects to it, right? One is all these ISVs are also an AWS customer at the end of the day because they are consuming AWS services, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, like the way AWS is structured, right? Every seller is kind of gold on the consumption of the customer they are managing, the AWS customer they are managing, right? Now, in a typical scenario without all these incentives, right? Say any ISP onboards a customer in US, right? Then uh, none of the only the AWS account manager of that ISP will definitely benefit out of it. But at the end of the day, say that account manager of that US account, they won't be getting any incentive out of this. So that again becomes like a deadlock in a
Mm.
normal scenario. Now to address that, we have evolved, we have come around, a lot of programs. We had ISV Accelerate last year. This year, in the recent reInvent, we announced about the SaaS co-sell benefit. Now, essentially, to summarize, what happens is, irrespective, like of the like if even in this example I quoted, if an ISV is an ISV Accelerate partner, and then they transact via marketplace with the end with the end customer, then in that case, even the AWS rep of that end customer also tends to get a quota retirement out of that deal happening, which
Mm,
definitely is a huge motivator for any AWS seller to help an ISV partner out there. We have had flavors of this program in the past, but I think today we have evolved to a stage where if you look at the structure of it, I think it's essentially around marketplace. There is a push, right? So anything happening through marketplace, everyone is a win-win, right? Be it the ISV, be it the
mhm,
reps involved, and even the end customer. There are benefits to end customers around it, like they can use the marketplace buys they do, right, to retire their commit with AWS as well. So again, that's
mhm,
a huge motivator for them. Now this is what is happening in the ISV side of world, right? Now coming to the SIs, right? Now say for example, we have an AWS rep who is maybe chasing an opportunity. They have, like, it's an existing customer and he gets to know about a new workload. Say maybe it's sitting on prem, it's going to come, and the customer has shown intent to migrate it to AWS, right? So that's when we have the system integrator, the partners who based on the use case, based on the expertise, they are invited to work with the customer to migrate the deal. At the end of the day, if you look at it, uh, any consumption would directly hit the customer AWS account, right? And that's where the AWS rep definitely gets benefit. So if you look at it from the ISV side of things, there is we have to have an incentive program, but for the SI side of things, because of the nature of the business, I think that discussion we don't get into much, right? Because at the end of the day, the customer rep and the customer both are benefiting. So in both the scenarios, the common thing is everyone is a winner, but the nuances are a bit different, like because of the kind of the expertise these partners have.
yeah, and that's so it's interesting. I think it's there's such a push for everything to be transacted through marketplace this year. It's really it's really that message is really coming through, and that if you want those incentives and those spiffs, to
Yes, Peps, yeah.
to to happen, it has to be in marketplace. On the SI side, talk a little bit about the capabilities and certifications that SI partners are looking to build up and then also promote within marketplace even.
So I think if you look at the way the partner program is structured today for AWS, right? When we talk about the software partners, we don't stress too much on certifications there. While
Hmm.
obviously it is good to have, but it's not a mandatory requirement. Whereas when we talk about the SI partners, I think their tier in the partnership journey is a function of how many certifications they have, and
Hmm.
not just certification. Like there are various stages or various levels of AWS certification, right? So essentially, the highest or the most complex being the professional and the specialty certifications we have, right? So, for example, say a partner. Who is looking to become, say, an advanced partner or a premier partner at AWS, then they need to have a very good strength. There are metrics around it. And not get there, but what I mean is the more the capability, more the certifications a partner is, that basically helps earn trust more with the customer. The customer would be more confident in, say, transacting or dealing with a partner, say, who has a list of, or who has a 100 certified AWS resources, versus maybe a partner who is just starting out with, say, two or three
Sure.
certifications. So definitely that's where the lens changes, right, for how, say, a customer looks at a partner. And that's how even our programs are structured from the SI side. And yeah, I think then comes the use cases the partners has, right? So while we might have partners catering to all types of business, right? They might not be specializing in anything, but depending on the use case, they might be doing great work in all the spheres, be it managed services, be it specialty, be it, reselling, all those things, right?
Hmm.
Whereas there are a few partners who stand out basis their expertise. For example, we have partners who yeah, have done like, delivered some, fantastic customer wins where potentially maybe AWS did not have an entry before, but because of the partner, the expertise they had in, say, in data and AI, they were able to capture the deal, and through the partners, even AWS got an entry into those accounts. So these partners have very strong use cases, case studies to back their expertise in a specific domain, and depending on that, there are programs like competencies we have, right? So we have competencies and service delivery programs. So the partners look at acquiring those competencies. Again, there are prerequisites around it. There are, the bar is pretty high. They have to go through the validation process and all. But obviously, for a partner who is, say, specializing in, say, uh, a specific use case, or say specific industry for that matter, a partner might be having a lot of successful case studies or wins in, say, financial services. So then those kind of partners look at, say, an FSI competency. We have a competency program around it. So that's how the equation changes, and that's how the partners look at acquiring the skill set, and that's how also they are visible to the end customers. And also, given that AWS is a large team, we have so many stakeholders, so even for internal audience, sometimes these things act as a filter, right? So if I have an, say, a data and AI opportunity, then I might be having, say, depending on the region, depending on where I'm looking at, I might have some
Hmm.
like two, three partners who have done a specific use case, and like we consider them as experts in that area. So it's a complex mix out there. But yeah, what I mean to say is it's a mix of how partners want to do this, how they want to position themselves, and also how much they're investing in this partnership program, the
Yeah.
the program we have. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's also an indicator of how the partner is investing in their partnership with AWS, right?
Right.
The number of certifications and how so, which then not only gives comfort to, as you said, gives comfort to the customer, but also to the AWS field teams to say, yes,
Yeah,
this is a
building.
partner
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I
Right,
want to
right,
bring them
right.
in because they're clearly really growing around their AWS practice.
And they've done it in the past. So honestly, that's one benchmark, right? So I have a partner who has done a similar use case with a similar type of customer in the past, versus a partner who say, while they might have the capability, but might be they're new to this. So then maybe in sometimes some cases, right? That's when maybe that partner might be kind of us to, maybe obviously we being AWS are neutral to all the partners, but obviously by the competencies they have, the kind of solutions they have, they stand out in the crowd of partners. So that's how I'll put it.
Yeah. Arjit, this has been fantastic. Maybe one last question. We have a lot of partner folks that are listeners. Anything that you've had a lot of experience both with Wipro, HCL, and most recently with AWS. Any piece of advice or something that you've learned or something you picked up along the way that you would want to share that has really helped you be as successful as you are today?
I think I mean I'm not honestly I think I have still a lot to learn, but I think one experience which I've shared. So if you look at my journey, I started as an electrical engineer, and I think we not talked about my first job, right? That was pre-MBA. I've also worked in like thermal power plants where I was handling the project management there. So if you would have asked me then that like 10 years from now or 11 years from now I would be in AWS, then that would have been like I would have laughed it off at that point in time, right? So I think it's all about I mean at every stage. I think one thing which stands out for me, and I feel in this competitive world for any individual, is that you should never stop learning and be never be afraid to like um commit mistakes, but then learn on the way. That's my
Hmm.
my my takeaway, because for me, even when I started like to the IT side of things, being an electrical engineer, it was like a very tough journey initially. But then I always had it in me that at the end of the day, this is not rocket science we are talking about, right? So it's, that flair to learn, and always on the lookout for opportunities and avenues to like learn and grow, and nurture yourself as a professional. That's something which has kept me going, and I think that's something which I have to continue doing, like till the time I'm working, maybe. So otherwise, the day you become a generalist and you stop learning or you get outdated, that's when it gets difficult out there. So that's my only takeaway, and yeah, that's how I'll put it.
That's a great one, and I think with your background, that's it's an appropriate one. Again, starting with as an electrical engineer,
Right.
and then project management, and then working with in an SI at Wipro and HCL, and then taking on the ISV, managing ISV partners, and now back working with SI
Back to
partners.
SI.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
you're not afraid to put yourself out there into what I'm sure
Yes.
is out of your comfort zone. So that's fantastic. Great advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to challenge yourself every day. Otherwise, life gets boring.
Arjit, thank you again for staying up late with us tonight and sharing your insights. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chip. I really appreciate you for inviting me, and had a great time out there.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for this episode, and for Arjit Chatterjee, I'm Chip Rodgers. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.